everybody. Good afternoon. I'm so excited to be talking to you all because I think we've been super quiet for the last year since we did the last public experience, and it's always fun to come out and talk to people who believe like I do. I think one of my favorite quotes from Michael Abrash is I think from the first Oculus Connect they did 4 or 5 years ago, where he said, these are the good old days. Remember these good old days? We're all in it together. I think we're still in that phase of spatial computing, especially with shared persistent AR. And I think that if either we're all going to succeed, and no one's going to have to work again after 10 years, you'll all be rich and famous and happy, or we're all basically going to be in trouble. So we're all in this together. I'm here to figure out how I can help all of you all. Thank you. I'm super surprised at how many of you are creating shared AR experiences. That means you are already well primed to understand how magical it is when two people can see the same thing in the real world and their interactions mirror each other. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And I'd like to spend as much time as I can on questions, because there's not a lot about us online. We've been deliberately pretty quiet and heads down, because I think one of the things that the space suffers from is a lot of hype, right? Is a lot of over-promising before experiences actually ship in people's hands. And so we've tried pretty hard to stay as quiet as we can, but things are about to start changing pretty soon, and I'm really excited to let you all in on a little bit of the fun that's been going on behind the scenes. So I'm Anjney Midha. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Ubiquity6. We were founded 2 years ago. We've raised $37.5 million to date. We're 60 people across San Francisco, Toronto, New York, and LA. And our goal is to allow people to explore reality together. And I'll talk about what that means in a second. But the core founding belief and philosophy of the company is that there's a sea change coming. The world is about to change, where we can finally, I think, merge the digital and physical world in the way science fiction has promised us for decades. Pick your favorite science fiction vision of the future. They just take it for granted that we'll all be able to navigate the digital world and physical worlds in a useful way in our daily lives. And we believe that the most exciting part of that merging is the ability for us all to start communicating in ways with each other that we just have not been able to do on the internet, because physical spaces have been completely missing. It's how we live our everyday lives, whether it's your dorm room, your bedroom, your living room, a park that you care about. These spaces are completely missing from digital interactions. Or they're proxied in various ways, like a GPS tag maybe, but that's about the most. And I think our belief is that once you can bring physical spaces online as shared spaces, you now have a way to bring people together face-to-face for meaningful interactions that just have not been delivered, but have been promised to us by science fiction for a long time. The way we got our start was basically as a game studio. Our goal was to try to test this thesis in the most simple way we can, which is to just build little shared moments that could bring people together in the physical world by merging the digital and real world coordinate systems. So what's happening in all of these little videos you're seeing here is either people are playing a game together in a real location that they share, they're leaving memories behind for other people, they're interacting with digital characters, but they're all able to do it together, or in the last one, they're basically playing Farmville in the real world. Our mission was quite simple. Just find the shortest path to allowing 2 or more people to share a camera view of the real world coordinate system, and then start changing the space using the device you already own in your pocket. That led us basically down a path of 3 big learnings. That there are 3 core missing pieces between where we are today and this crazy future that I think all of us want to live in, where we're all more connected to each other in meaningful ways. Those 3 missing pieces are, 1, shared spaces. And that's probably the most important building block I'm going to talk to you about today, which is allowing people to see the same coordinate system both in the virtual and real world, in the physical world. And the way, I'll talk in a second about how we've been solving that problem. But then once you have the shared space, once you have many people be able to actually share that same view of reality, then we think the most important thing is to allow people to author into that space together. Whether that's to author a game in there, author a piece of information, or a guide, doesn't really matter. The point is, once you have that space, it should be super simple to create in that space together. And then the last thing is that we need the kind of experience that the internet first offered us all, right? You could go online and just go from website to website with other people, and you didn't have this hegemony called these walled gardens of app stores. You didn't have to create a new account for every single experience and then go confirmation code, blah, blah. Like, we know that experience is dead on arrival if every shared experience has to rise to the level of a full standalone mobile app. Okay, so this was a year ago, and I'll talk about what the underlying approaches are to that and what we've done since then. On the shared spaces piece, to many of you this is going to be obvious. Many of you are actually solving these problems or working with SDKs that solve this problem. We've built our own way to do this, which is we take the 2D image data coming off of the smartphone you already own, turn that into a really precise 3D representation of the space you're in. We allow that to happen either indoors or outdoors, and continuously merge that into a bigger and bigger space for people together in a very active way. If you want to merge it, we allow you to do it. We don't do it without your permission. Then we actually allow the machine to start seeing the real world, the way your brain sees it. We try to extract the bare minimum of intelligence required. This is a table, this is a chair, this is how my brain perceives the world, to understand how to give it actual meaning beyond just the geometry. That's a shared space, right? So it's a shared space with a single coordinate system that is at one-to-one scale with the physical coordinate system that we all live our daily lives in, and then we are starting to imbue that shared space with the kind of knowledge that our brains just take for granted. And I think this is one of those problems that, you know, humanity will have a decades-long march towards, but our goal is to just get the minimum information required to start enabling magic for people in the spaces you already live in every day. And it turns out you don't need that much to start giving people a really rich canvas to create against. So about a year ago, we decided to test our belief in these three shared missing pieces: the shared spaces, the fast, easy authoring, and the browser. And I'm sure all of you know, the shininess of AR portals. I'm sure you've seen ARKit videos and so on online. It's just cool to see a portal in space that you can walk through and back out. But the thing we wanted to figure out was, could you actually place a persistent portal in a location that everybody would see precise to a few centimeters and be able to interact with it together? So we worked with some of our friends at the SF MoMA last year. Their flagship exhibition for 2018 was the work of René Magritte. And if you know his work, then you know that his stuff screams augmented reality. So in the lobby of the SF MoMA, you were able to, anybody with our app was able to see a persistent portal placed in the exact same place, and everybody was able to walk in with their avatars in and out of that world. And you'll see in a second, this person actually is able to walk through, look back out, and you're able to look back out at what other people are like in the physical world. When you walk into Magritte's world, you turn into a floating green apple. So these are little things you can start doing with identity and social avatars once you have a shared space, because you need a way to proxy people's identity both in the real and the virtual world. And this was the first time we had seen, we'd built a way for everyone's global identity to change based on where you are in the physical space. All right, so that was step one, shared space. Okay, check. Our capturing and positioning system, mapping and localization from view worked. But the next step was, how do we make it easy for people to author in this space? Okay, so we went to the first floor of the museum, and we turned it basically into one massive Minecraft game, right? So you have, if you've ever been to a museum, you know that one of the things almost all museums have is a little logbook or a guest book that you can leave behind comments that you were there and you were really happy about the experience they created. So we basically created a shared logbook where you could place a sculpture that you could create using our a simple voxel system we built, or just take a selfie of yourself and put it up on the ceiling. And the idea was, look, it's a toy experience, it's a proof of concept, we think people will do it for 3 or 4 minutes, and then you'll leave. The average session length for this experience was 45 minutes. And we had to clear the ceiling 4 different times. And it is hard to describe in a video and capture the experience of 18 to 65-year-olds, people with no interest in gaming, people who are, in fact, there specifically not to be at home Netflixing and chilling or playing Fortnite. They're there to experience the art of the SF MoMA going bazonkers. When you can place a digital block in the real world through your camera, and then 150 other people have to deal with that. Right? That's a feeling of power that you get that the internet has just never been able to give us before. And I know we're playing with fire here, but that really blew away all our expectations for how simple and toy-like this experience actually was. And we had people coming over. The uninstall rate for people who've been on that experience is 95%. So 95% of people who have downloaded this app for this one night still have the app on their phones. When you think that you have a portal to the real world, to shared spaces in the real world coordinate system, you don't want to lose out. You don't want to be left out. You want to be able to do that anytime. Anyway, so that's what we learned a year ago. We said, okay, we figured it out. Shared spaces are really, really important. And a way for anybody to author in that space in a persistent way is really important. And lastly, you cannot force people to keep downloading new apps for these experiences. And the upside of that learning was it became very clear to us what the killer app for AR is. It's a shared persistent layer over the real world. It's like asking what was the killer app for the portable internet in your pocket in 2008? It turns out that was the killer app. And the reason I lived this was because my previous life, before I started Ubiquity6, was as an investor at a venture capital firm called Clara Perkins. Clara Perkins was the first firm to start a dedicated venture capital fund to invest in iPhone apps. And at the time, it was incredibly controversial. The popular wisdom was that you could never build a serious business on a smartphone. At most, you'd get a flashlight or beer app. In fact, at Kleiner itself, it was not at all a popular consensus that this was a new platform that was going to change the entire world. And it became clear to us after these experiences a year ago that we're at that stage, and once you bring a shared space online, everybody wants to do something different with real-world spaces. Some people want to author games like this, and other people want to create information and guides and interactive layers of collaboration on top of the real world that may not have nothing to do with games. So over the last the upside of this was we got the clarity. The downside of these realizations was this is freaking hard. It is really hard to build a mapping and localization system, a really simple game engine on top of that allows anyone to author to the real world, and then lastly, a new way to distribute these experiences. And we sure as hell weren't going to be able to pull it off with the 14 people that we had on our team. So since then, we went and raised $27.5 million. We've quadrupled our team, and we've been heads down assembling these building blocks for a new way to use the real world that I don't think the world has ever seen before. So I'm going to wrap by giving you a few learnings that we've obsessed with since we had the chance to pull off these prototypes and what we've been finessing under the hood. The first was that networking is way more important than graphics. Right? It's so easy if you're in AR and VR to think that you got to really give people photorealistic models, and your GPU rendering just has to be really good. Otherwise, the experience feels toy-like. People do not care about the graphics. They do care about the precision of positioning in a shared space so that when I see a block here, you see it there as well. That shared contract that reality has with you, and they really care about the fidelity of networking so that when I move the block, it moves for everybody in real time. And that's a really hard task for any who come from the world of multiplayer games. So just getting 150 people concurrently networked in the space was quite a challenge. I think we're about to blow the lid off of that concurrent usage pretty soon. So that's my one learning for anybody getting started in this space. Work on the networking, work on the positioning of the shared space. The graphics are easy. It's embarrassing to show you these videos because at the time we were using GLSL shaders, and now we compile directly to Metal on iOS and Vulkan on Android, so we do have best-in-class rendering, but that's almost a distraction. The second learning we had was that the act of mapping, of capturing the world, has to be one that you get people's buy-in for. It cannot be passive. There's a number of companies out there trying to build these 3D maps of the world. AR cloud is a word some people use. It is not going to work if you think it's just going to invisibly be captured when people set up their play space like you do on an Oculus Quest or a Guardian system. The act of mapping the world has to be one that you get the consumer and the users buy-in on. In this case, that was the SF MoMA as the venue owner. And we gave them a lot of control and tools over capturing, visualizing, and changing the space and controlling what could and could not happen in that space. So this is, I cannot stress this, this was a very hard set of, this one in particular meant we had to build out a lot more software tooling, especially for moderation and visualization. But without that, I think we're doomed to be stuck with privacy issues where people are pretty mad about their privacy being violated, and also a lack of clarity about what a good and bad user experience is in the real world. I think people will expect, for example, positioning in spaces where they think are mapped or captured, but actually aren't. The third one is that players basically are creators. In AR, everyone is a creator. In a virtual world like Fortnite or Minecraft or any experience like Second Life, you have one superpower that you don't have in the real world, and that is arbitrary locomotion. You can hit a key on a keyboard and just fly through a space. And that is quite compelling and engaging for the human brain. But when you don't have that, because in the real world you actually have to walk around, then you don't have that superpower. Then your brain is absolutely telling you, I need to be able to interact with this space in some other way. I need to be able to create. So it was staring us in the face that any shared persistent experience feels so incomplete without giving the ability the user to create in that shared space. So the downside is that if you have just a pure passive viewing experience, you're probably already seeing users say this isn't that engaging. But the upside is that even something as simple as putting up your selfie on the ceiling is enough to keep people captivated. So that was our biggest learning, is that you have to treat players as creators, and my definition of creators is people actually have authoring permissions and visibility permissions. Okay, I'll try to, I could go on for a long time about the specificity and details of each learning lesson, but I did want to make sure we had time for questions. We're very close to showing off to a lot of you how these things come together, and we started opening up. I guess that there's a slide missing. Hold on. We started opening up our product to early adopters about a month ago. If you go to awe.ubiquity6.com, that's what I had up on a slide, we have a form just for you all. Please fill it in. Tell us what phone you have. We can't wait to get some smart, kind, encouraging, generous people to give us feedback on it and go on this journey with you all together. I hope this helped, and I'm happy to take any questions people may have.